Mthwakazi Wars, yeah, ngizaqala kakhulu ukuthi ngizama ukuthi sitshele my readers ukuthi it's just one war in different chapters, yeah, and all I'm saying is that I've done 4 chapters of this same war. Yeah, it is a war of colonial resistance war. Yeah, when the colonizer Cecil John Rhodes arrived, the people here like went, no. This man is bringing poverty, so let's fight. Because Rhodes himself was a crook. You know, he was playing everybody a fool. You know, and to get what he wanted. Because all he wanted was money. Yeah, nothing else. Because this is a boy who came from a poor background, sick, you know. So he was so hungry to be in the class of white people that had money. So that was his motivation. So so he had to use hooks and crooks, and here he was known as one of the best crooks. You know, and yet he would go and tell a different story to whoever he met. And this is the reason why that when he arrived here, there was war. No, you can't come. Because it's stupid to say, we signed a deal, but then we have a war. How does it work? How do you sign a deal and have a war? So it tells you there is no deal. This guy was selling dummies to the Queen, selling dummies to the investors, selling dummies to everyone. Even today, people still buy Cecil John Rhodes dummies. And it's not fair for a world that says it respects human rights and cultural rights. It is just not fair that you still worship a guy you know was selling you dummies in order to destroy people's lives and loot their wealth. And you still, yeah? You still. I wanted to send a message to the chairman and the board of the Rhodes Trust that they are 2 crooks. How do they sleep at night when they know that Cecil John Rhodes, when he arrived here from Mthwakazi Kingdom, he found 650,000 Kekli, seriously, not what Africans have now because of Rhodes. Free animals who are raising a lot crazy land. We had Kekli here, Nkomo, things that they used to create Zimbabwe national trade grant. Real Kekli, 12,000 US. John Rhodes took 600,000 of those. 1890 what? 4. Calculate 600,000 in 1894. If it was interest in the bank, how much money would that be? Billions, right? And you know what? He left the whole kingdom with only 50,000 cattle. Because they were amazing breeders. They had perfected breeding. Do you know what they did in 3 years? They grew 50,000 cattle in 3 years. to 350,000. You are young boys. You know mathematics. I want you to do a calculation. If someone can grow a head of 50,000 keki, yeah, in 3 years to 350,000, is that person primitive? Because Africa's agriculture is based on what? On economy. Even America was built on cowboys, keki. Excuse me, America was built on cowboys, nkomo, keki. You grew up watching Western films. They were building an American what? It was built on sugar, built on cotton. Come on, guys. Then a guy comes and takes 600,000 of your keki, you sit in his boat and you sleep comfortably at night. What's your problem? You think they're normal human being? I am chairman of the Roads Trust. Yeah? And this is a looter. And you sit every year. Every year you sit and dish out money that you know comes out of 600,000 keki looted by Cecil John Rhodes. And you dish it to everyone else in the world except the children here. Where Cecil John Rhodes' bones are. Where he looted and where he chose to come and sit here. What does that tell you? Let me tell you what it tells you. It tells you that somebody who is greedy, who is out there, forced Cecil John Rhodes' will. It is not the correct will. Because I don't think Cecil John Rhodes was stupid. That he can take his body and bring it here and take all the will and the money and give it to America. No, there's someone who wrote a wrong will because Rhodes was working with sources. They were all crooks, so they even crooked him when he was dead. Why would they not crook him when he was dead? So that they would benefit. Because they knew Rhodes had no wife, had no children, had nothing. Who was going to challenge that will? No one. Sorry, guys. You young guys, stop fighting each other as Africans. There is no war between you. Let me tell you a lesson from my great-grandmother. She said, you know what? Children, when you are hungry, you must eat. And if you are not full, eat. And if you are not full, eat. And if you are not full, eat. Because if you don't eat, you are going to become a thief. Simple indigenous knowledge. You create poverty in Africa, you create thieves. It's simple. People in Africa are hungry. That's why they steal. And then they go into, like this American little guy, who they call president. What do you call his name? This boy. Hey, hey! Do you know what? They go around making Africans hungry. That's my grandma's narrative, right? They go around making Africans hungry. And make sure they're hungry, very hungry. Then Africans steal. Then he turns around and says, Africans can't do anything. Sorry. In this kingdom, let me give you a little overview about our kingdom, Mthwakazi. Mthwakazi is not a party. Yeah? It doesn't belong to one people. It's exactly like United Kingdom. It stands for United Kingdom. Mthwakazi are kingdoms of Southern Africa that have come together, who are united. They are kings. In each of the kingdoms, like the king who launched my book, he is from the Xhosa kingdom under Mthwakazi kingdom. You understand that? Like in United Kingdom, if people would create Mthwakazi kingdom, like in United Kingdom at that time, would they be primitive? And they paid their own children US $30,000 to go to school at grade 6. You pay your kids, and they come and say, our parents should pay fees. To who? You see these education models? You come to rich people. Rhodes was angry when he came here why Africans worked only 12 hours a week. They were so rich they worked only 12 hours a week in this kingdom. 12. And they came from a background of labor where they made African slaves because they were poor. Because they were poor. Here we worked only 12 hours a week and we paid our kids to go to school, $30,000. And when our kids left school, they made $10,000 profit. Every year they were at school, and at 24 when they came out, they were rich. Why would they work? Excuse me? Do rich people in America work, or they play golf and employ other people to tell lies on their behalf? Create wars that don't exist. Why? Because they are rich. In Mthwakazi Kingdom, our young people spend time doing hunting. You know, sports hunting for lions. The lions, the Sicily thing they killed near my village.
Yes.
They killed near my village because a sporting doctor had paid 30,000 US. You understand? Our children at your age, Bafana, you went hunting sports every time and you didn't pay a cent, and the animals and the elephants never got finished. No one ever poached. There was no single poacher. And today, how many poachers? And they go around saying, we are protecting animals, we are from poachers, these Africans are poaching. Now you're calling your children poachers because you've made them hungry. Because Coco said, you eat, and then eat, and then eat, and eat until you're full. Because if you don't full, you're going to what?
Steal.
Going to steal. And you're going to steal from the one who has. Huh?
So in the book,
in terms
of the narrative, you're telling it from which side? Because we've heard so many narratives of this.
In terms of the narrative, from the book, I then tell Mthwakazi Wars from the narrative of the narratives that are hidden. Narratives that have been put underground. And then, why do I do that? To counter narratives that have been repeated over and over. Because the narratives that have been repeated over and over are wrong. The knowledge that can help the world today to live secure, to eliminate poverty, are all in Mthwakazi Kingdom. That knowledge is there because we are the only ones who can tell you, guarantee you that we had people, a whole population that worked only 12 hours. And Rhodes himself was angry because they spent time dancing, eating, yeah? And they were not donors that time. So where did the food come from?
Created by ourselves.
You see? So they were rich. They ate, went out sport hunting and everything and enjoyed themselves. And today they pay big time holidays to do what our kids did every day. Our kids didn't go to school when they were 5 and below. No nonsense of ECT to control a child's thinking and mind. No. Our children did 2 things when they were below 5 in this. Eat, full, go play, and far away from adults. So that adults don't pollute you in your creativity. Go play far. Play the games that you want, when you want. Play with who you want. And when they hear you crying, they know why you're crying. Are you hungry? Come and eat. From sunrise to sunset, they eat. When they are full, they go and play. Here, now, what do you do? Little kid as little as 3 years, in the morning, cold, no shoes, food, hungry, with donated food from Trump, hungry. Yeah? You go to a school, the kid you are told what games to play, when to play, with who to play, wearing a color of a uniform. with who to play. Yeah, this world has a lot of white people that are ignorant and they think they are clever. With who you play, yeah? In some places they are forced to sleep at the same time. Yeah, use kids. It's now 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Sleep. What kind of how to play a child like that who can run a world when they sleep at 12 p.m.? That will never happen, Mthwakazi. Children eat full, go and play creatively with who they want and decide. And when they turn 6, they go and build their own boarding school. Here's 30,000, go to school, my kid. Build your own boarding school and run it. Now, these are the narratives that we're saying. There are so many of them. Yeah, so many. Yeah, we don't know that the month ended with 12 months. In our culture, a month ends with 13 months and 28 days. And there's a reason, because that's the universe. That's how you control global warming. You don't control global warming through their stupid science. You control it by taking the year back to 12 months and to 28 days, and then creating everything around the way you live, the way you create wealth in that box. That's what Mthwakazi knew. That knowledge is deep. Bring any professor here. I talk to them and ask them. They're stupid with what they're doing, trying to control global warming. They can only find it here, Mthwakazi, because it's a society that had learned. They were intellectuals because they taught their kids using many different models and principles of learning. What stopped that? War. Whose war? Cecil John Ross' war. Hence the book, Mthwakazi Wars. Our war is a war of poverty. It is not a racial war. Mthwakazi's wars is not a racial war. It is not a tribal war. It is not an ethnic war. Because there were never such wars. These wars were created by people who came here looking for gold, nothing else, and created poverty. Now we have to fight a poverty war. 4 chapters. The war starts 1893. It dies down for a bit. Yeah? It comes back 1896. It dies down again. Yeah? It comes up in 1963. Now they're AKs. Yeah? Now they're jets. You see, from spear and shield to bombing jets in Zambia. Same war. And then after that, we win the war. What do? They go around and pay people who have no historical narratives, that wrong historical narratives in ZANU-PF. Pay them to create the 4th war through Kukurawundi. Because they fed them with wrong narratives. Kukurawundi is a result of ignorant people who were fed wrong history narratives by white agents, and they created a war that now they don't know how to handle.
So looking at the stages that they narrate in your book, what do you feel is the damage, or if I may use that word, in terms of that happened to the Mthwakazi kingdom?
I call it post-colonial trauma. Africans are suffering from post-colonial trauma. And you can listen to them when they speak on TV, on YouTube, when they preach, when they drive cars, when they do things. You can see that Africans are suffering. Their biggest killer is not AIDS, it's post-colonial trauma. Thinking that they must work to be like a white person, to live like a white person, to behave like a white person, to worship like a white person. That's post-colonial trauma. And we have to deal with that. We will never, ever liberate Africa from poverty as long as we are suffering post-colonial trauma disease. Even Africans, there are Africans now who have joined that kind of trauma. I am a billionaire, the first African billionaire. Billionaire, when you look out through the window and people are hungry, What's your problem in your head? What's the problem in your head? What do white people say? This is a successful businessman. They make you sit with their kind. I am successful. You're sick. Post-colonial trauma disease.
How do you correct that?
By writing books like the Mthwakazi Wars. Books that don't follow the narratives that you're told to read. But books that what? Take out the right indigenous knowledge that has been suppressed and bring it to the surface, and finding models, making our young children find models of how would this society manage to pay kids to go to school. What did they do? How did they create it? That is what, because that was not taught. Because the guy who is coming to teach you a new life, to civilize you, is a guy who wants you poor. So these models, they don't put. Yeah? And even now, when you hear people talk of business models, what models, it's nonsense. You need to come to Mthwakazi Kingdom to learn simple business. You know this thing with the poverty here in Harare? What kind of a person, what kind of a leader who hires a plane and goes to another country to invite the children of other people to come and do business in their home when their own children are not doing business? What kind of person is that? There's a person suffering from post-colonial trauma. They've been made to believe that the real investment is in there with, not here with their own people. So these are the kind of books you need to what? To write. That's why I say my book is for children. It's for you young guys. Forget the professors. Forget whoever. Just you guys, just read. And when you read the book, I don't write my books in full. I just touch on narratives, right? So do you guys, when you come to university and they ask you, you know what they ask you? What project do you want to research? Choose that hidden what? Narrative. Don't ask them to make you write about things that are obvious, that have been written many times, and they keep saying to you, you must quote so and so and quote so and so, otherwise you won't be a graduate. Why must you quote someone? So that you stay in line, right? Don't quote no one when you want to heal post-colonial trauma. Just go there and dig for what? For information.
Okay, you say the book is written for children, and I saw even in the historical tours that we went through, you were mostly talking to young children. How important is it for this young generation to know the correct history of Mthwakazi?
I am only doing what our traditional indigenous knowledge says. One, you develop a person when they are young. You develop a person when they're young. And then they take care of themselves. Yeah? Why go to school after 24 years? You're just giving someone money. Your real investment in education is when they're young. That's what our indigenous knowledge says. That age group I was talking to, they don't forget, they're sharp, they know, when they grow up, they know what to look for. Now they're independent. They've been liberated by this talk. That's important, to liberate children when they're young, so that they're able to create a better future for themselves. How can you guide them and then say, children are the future? They are the future already. You've already blinded them, and then they're saying they are the future. What kind of thinking is that? If children are the future, just give them the right narratives and let them fly like butterflies.
And how is it important for, especially some key historical sites that we have in Mhlanga that most maybe residents of Mhlanga are not aware of? How do we keep that memory inside of us alive? Make sure that people know their history and why is it important for people to know that?
You know, I come from a theatre background, right?
Yes.
So there's something in theatre that we call the theatre of memory. When you put a statue, you're actually making someone remember. That's memory, right? Yeah. So these sites here are actually theatres of memory. Unfortunately, we don't go to those theatres as Bulawayo people. So that means our memory is dying. We don't even know that is the time that now we should repatriate Rhodes' property and bring him here where his bones are. Because that's the country that he loved, right? He even chose that he was going to be buried here. So that means these are the people that he loved. Because these are the people that he knew were intellectual. He knew how he robbed these people. And he respected these people. So, when we forget Rhodes' journey in our memory, can we repatriate? No, we can't. So, theater of memory is important. But there's something else, like what they done in Kukraundi. Yeah? Remembering to forget. Yeah, we have a holiday. What is it for? National unity. And then, why do you have it? Don't talk about that. How can you have a holiday that you can't talk about? It's called remembering to what? To forget. Remember, guys, that something happened, but forget, guys, what happened. Yeah? Remember, something happened, but forget what happened. So, again, I think it's important that we need to get adults of the city of Bulawayo and Zimbabwe, not only Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. Because I hear you young people in the social media insulting each other about Shona and Ndebele, this, what. It's all based on wrong narratives that you're being taught as you grew up. You have no reason to fight. You all come from one Africa, one family in Africa. All of you are relatives. There's no black African who is not relative to another. Never. There's also no African who is not royal. All Africans are royal people. And they were such until colonization came. Now you want to perpetuate that. No, guys. Find time to read and research the right narratives. I would encourage you young people to join Imbali. Yeah? So you really can have time to catch this fever where you guys are questioning everything. The only thing I really hate about young people in Africa is that they've been taught to be so obedient about everything. Especially if it's coming from a white person. Especially if that white person comes from overseas. Come on, guys. Break free, man. Stop fighting each other. Remove these borders. They're not necessary. There's only, you know Kenneth Kaunda, right? Amazing leader. He had this one thing that he loved to say. One Zambia, one nation. All of you young people in Africa should take that to the future. One Africa, one nation.
And as we wrap up, what is your ultimate dream? Or what do you envision the Mthwakazi that is in your heart?
The Mthwakazi that is in my heart is that all of you young people need to understand that Mthwakazi is a united kingdom. It is not a country. It is not a political party. It is like United States. It's many independent what? People who understood the value of cultural diversity and said, let's come together so we look more beautiful when we are together but when we are different. And I hear you young people every time talking about Mthwakazi, talking about it as if it's a party, talking about it as if it's a contest between the Shona and the Ndebele. It's not that. You're wasting your time and energies. Just become who you are. Yeah? All of you. And create the kingdom. Yeah? That has many kingdoms that appreciate cultural what? Diversity. It's nice when you're different and you're together. Because, as Kenneth Kaunda used to say, one Zambia, one nation. And me, my vision is to hear young people in Africa going one Africa, one nation. If someone says Rwanda, just tell them shut up. There's no such a thing as called Rwanda. South Africa, you, wena, Sockshire. Kenya, like wena. We are one Africa, one nation. And we don't discuss with anyone in the world who is from outside Africa, like this one here, it's Germany, it's what deals here. All deals are signed in one place. If it's an African deal, it's going to be signed in one office. How can you have African deals signed, deal Africa West, deal Africa East, deal, what are you doing? And don't sell your natural resources using other people's money. That's my wish, that's my dream. As a playwright, I'm a playwright, I'm not a historian, I don't write history, I don't write history textbooks, because I'm not a historian. I'm a cultural activist, and my book is activism. You must read it. If you don't want to read it, just throw it on the table. Your child is going to pick it up and read it. But the first most important thing is please buy it. Thank you very much.